Hello everyone, and welcome back for some more Let's Read Fate's Strange Fake. We're on Prologue 3, Assassin. Again, we're learning a little bit about each and every one of the servants here. Here's a fun thing. I got a free coupon for some books here, and I mean, I can't really read books that I have in China for obvious reasons, and the English selection, nothing really there. But you know what they do have? They had the availability to import a copy of Fate's Strange Fake from Japan. And so, just to be like, yo, no, I actually have this book, I ordered it, so it's on its way. So hey, that's cool. I'll get to actually hold it and see what it's like, and open it and be like, I can't read Japanese either. But that's why we got this. So, let us dig on in to a good book. So, Prologue 3, Assassin. It's a little cut off there, but the next pages should be fine. All right, Prologue 3, Assassin. In a certain land, there once lived a woman of deep faith. That was all. That was the whole story. The devout woman was so pious that she behaved as a heteroclite. Okay, so we're already off to a new word, huh? All right, let's go. Let me take out my laptop here. Heteroclite sounds like something I've never heard of. Oh, it's literally just a noun or adjective meaning to be abnormal. Wow. That seems like a much deeper word. All right. Sure. And so the people scorned her as a zealot. Worse still, even those who worship the same god as her looked upon her with contempt. But the zealot did not hate the people. The people only hated her because she was weak of faith. She was not pious enough. It was as simple as that. The zealot forged on, pushing herself even harder. She sought after the miracles created by her predecessors and recreated every last one of them. But her faith was still weak. It was far, far too weak. Or at least that's what the zealot heard, as the world screamed at her. Every man of faith began to shun the zealot. My faith is weak, my faith is weak, my faith is weak. In the end, the zealot was unable to do anything. She lived as a zealot and died as a zealot. Not as a martyr. She lived a life of nothing, and then she was gone. And yet the zealot did not begrudge the world. She was ashamed of her own weak faith, and gave herself over to the maelstrom of faith once again. The zealot felt no hate for the people. Only the gods of the heathens drew her ire. So lived the zealot, irredeemable in the eyes of the common people. That was the whole story. That was where her story was supposed to end. Until the moment the false grail chose the zealot. Are we talking about the master or the servant here? Nighttime, East Snowfield, the Marsh District. The Marsh District unfolded to the east of the city's center. It was home to many crystal-clear lakes. In between the lakes were countless swamps. A network of roads was knitted through the district. Out of all the land surrounding the city, the eastern region, the Marsh District, was the most developed. Even so, there was not much in the way of civilization save for a few fishing spots and vacation homes. And on one particular plot of land, there was an enormous vacation home. A bounded field had been established there. Even if an ordinary man was able to detect the home, he would not be able to bring himself to worry about it. Architecturally speaking, it was in really bad taste. Compared to the lakeshore boarding house a little to the west, it was a bit too gothic, designed with black and gray motifs, and in the basement of the house, a number of magi were present. They had just completed a summoning ceremony. The summoning was a success. All that remained was to answer the servant's query in the affirmative, thereby completing the contract. But that is strange. The summoner, a mage by the name of Jester, stared quizzically at the heroic spirit he had summoned. Around 10 of his disciples were also present, and in the center of the summoning circle stood one other figure, clearly neither human nor mage. An air of intimidation, infinitely deep and pure, emanated from a solitary woman clad in black robes. She seemed quite young, but it was difficult to be sure, since she kept her face turned to face the floor. Right then, Jester felt a severe sense of foreboding. The summoning should have brought forth an assassin. For the most part, it was impossible to pick the class into which a heroic spirit is summoned, but there are exceptions. With the appropriate preparations and incantations, one can choose to summon either Assassin or Berserker, each of which has a special characteristic that makes this possible. Accordingly, Jester chose to summon a servant of the Assassin class. By their very nature, only a small number of heroic spirits can be summoned as servants of the Assassin class, and at first glance, the being at the center of the summoning circle seemed to be one of these heroic spirits, but I was under the impression that assassins always wear a white skull mask. Nope. It's not how it works anymore. At a point it did, but definitely not anymore. Heroic spirits of the assassin class all clad themselves in a black robe and hid their faces with a skull mask. Jester knew that much from his earlier research. But the woman before him, though wrapped in black cloth, did not wear a white mask. Her actual face was visible from beneath the layers of fabric. In that case, am I supposed to pose the question? This was Jester's first time actually experiencing the Holy Grail War. Of course, this Holy Grail War was imitation from the beginning. It was impossible to anticipate the ways in which it would differ from the war in Japan. In the first place, it was bizarre that the parties behind this entire war, the stars of the show, had yet to reveal themselves. Jester assumed that a clan at least as renowned as the Einsburns would have been involved in the creation of something so grand and elaborate as this Holy Grail War, but he did not sense the presence of any magi fitting that description. Perhaps they were hiding themselves well, or perhaps they were watching from afar. Jester set all of his doubts aside and waited for the servant to make a move. And then the black-clad woman slowly raised her head. Jester's form was reflecting in her pupils. I ask of you. Her gaze was as powerful as she was intimidating, deep and infinitely black, pure and unpolluted. The mage unwittingly let out a quiet murmur as he chuckled softly, waiting for the servant to continue speaking. Are you the mage who has summoned me to attain the Holy Grail? She rubbed the black cloth wrapped around her mouth and spoke deliberately and delicately. Relieved that she had finally spoken, Jester stepped forward. Brimming with a newfound confidence, he spread his arms as if to welcome her into this world. Indeed I am. I shall... Delusional heartbeat. The moment she spoke, time stopped. Jester felt something brush against his chest. He lowered his head to look at it. What's this? And then something... He saw something red in front of his torso, but he noticed that it was in fact holding on to something, and he realized that was holding is actually his heart. And he did not raise his head back up. Jester's body collapsed to the ground. How? Seeing their master's body suddenly turn utterly immobile, Jester's disciple mages panicked. Their eyes grew wide as they looked at the situation unfolding before them. A third arm, red in color, what? Had sprouted from the woman's back. It extended all the way to Jester's body where it brushed up against his chest. How strange. The red hand came to hold a heart, and then crushed it. The remaining mages looked at their master's body and at the woman, their gaze flitting back and forth. They cried out frenziedly, You rogue! What did you do to Lord Jester? Are you not a servant? As they panicked and shouted, the mages armed themselves with weapons and intensely focused their magical energy. Dang, bro. Yo, Jester out here looking like a dude who dies right away. He looks like boneless Caneth. And yeah, okay, so she... Oh my god, hold up. Hold the frickin' phone. You're not going to be Siduri, are you? No. I mean, I'm just saying that because it's a vaguely similar thing, but why would she have a third arm? Huh. Interesting. As she looked upon Jester's disciples emotionlessly, the black-robed woman said just one thing. Indeed, it was ephemeral. Our God, most compassionate. has no chalice. Perhaps they heard her, or perhaps they didn't. Either way, one of the men drew a magical-seeming dagger and leapt towards her, trying to impale her through the back, and then a wet, aberrant sound echoed around the chamber as her shoulders began to warp. Her left arm reached backwards at an abnormal angle and ever so gently touched him in cyber fantasy. And right away, his head burst into flames and splattered everywhere, accompanied by an explosive noise, as if his head had become a bomb. Hearing the blast and seeing a flash of light, the mages all cowered in fear. Only 2 of them had perished, but that was enough to convince them that they were dealing with a real, honest-to-God servant, a being with which they were utterly powerless. I shall cleanse the heretic magi. As she spoke deliberately, she stood still, not moving for a few seconds. It seemed like she was allowing the magi time to flee, but they did not. In unison, they took a great leap backwards and unleashed the full force of their magical energies on the woman. Witnessing this piteous sight, the black-robed servant slowly shook her head, almost despondent look in her eye. And yet, without a trace of mercy, she spoke words of power. Ichor of reverie. And then, silence descended upon the chamber. The black-clad servant was surrounded by corpses of magi. All of the mages that had tried to release their magical energy upon her had, for some reason, been consumed by their own mighty flames. The remains were strewn about the floor. The only one who had any idea what happened was the servant. She hastened up the stairs of the basement, still silent. She reverted to her spirit form and, unseen by anyone, she raced off into the darkness of night. She, who had no direction in her life, had finally found a definitive purpose. Is this just going to be another Hassan that I've just somehow never heard of? It's definitely a possibility, but we'll see. The zealot sought proof. Proof that she was truly a person of faith. Proof that she was one of Allah's people. Nothing more. It was not until much later that she realized that her search for proof was itself evidence that her faith was weak. Oh, that is true. I mean, that's the whole thing with faith. The idea of needing to, if you search for evidence of faith, then you're not believing. That's the whole thing. That's why they say, like, oh, if you look for proof of something, then you don't simply trust that it exists. And that's why it's like, you don't need proof of God, you just believe it. That's the whole thing. Yeah, that makes sense. When she was young, she honed herself so as to earn a name that would serve as proof of her faith. In order to attain that name, she would evidence her piety. She would have to attain power. Let me try that again. In order to attain that name, which would evidence her piety, she would have to obtain power. Attain power, why is this sentence killing me? Power enough to perform a divine miracle. However, only a particular special sort of miracle would suffice. It had to be a miracle that could bring death, swiftly and reliably. A miracle greater than any known to Zindiq or Mohareb. She was a member of a sect that pursued miracles, the Hashashin, a cult that was zealotic in nature. Yeah, okay, so she is a Hassan, okay. Because those are the Hassans there, yeah. Even in the innermost circles of the cult, however, she was scorned as a zealot among zealots. The past grandmasters of the cult had all performed a miracle bearing the name of Shaitan, which for some reason, the Y there throws me off, but it literally is just, it's Satan, right? But Shaitan, and in doing so earned their titles. Each and every one of them was shocked by her deeds. None of them was prepared to believe what they had seen. She was but a young girl, a mere lamb. How could she master all the miracles performed by the preceding 18 grandmasters? Shut up. No, you're not telling me that she can just do every Hassan power. Oh my god. That would be wild. There was no question that she honed herself with the most Herculean of efforts. It went without saying that she had spilled much of her pure, uncorrupted blood in the process, and yet the people of her sect would not recognize her as a grandmaster. What have you accomplished? You have imitated miracles already performed. That is not but rote. It's because your faith is weak that you are unable to bring forth a miracle of your own contrivance. Oh, they're saying that because you didn't invent something new, you can't... Okay. She was certainly talented. That is to say, she had talent enough to master the abilities of all the grandmasters of the past. She had the strength to bear the pain she went through as she mortified her flesh. She had the fortitude to face any hardship through strength and willpower. But she was not endowed with the talent needed to bring about a miracle of her own invention. That was only half the problem. Her ability to master so many miracles, when mastery of a single one would take an ordinary person a lifetime, that was the other half. The people may well have feared her, knowing that she was able to achieve those miracles in a matter of years. And thus, you are weak of faith. We cannot bestow the title of Grandmaster upon one as yourself. The argument was mere sophistry, and yet she accepted it wholeheartedly. I see. My faith is not yet deep enough. How much I have to learn. I brought shame upon the miracles of the former Grandmasters. She did not resent anyone else. She merely continued to hone her own abilities. And when a new Grandmaster, the 100-Faced, was selected... Oh, you're in like the same generation as 100 Faces. I see. She saw that he was capable of all manner of things she could not do herself, but she did not envy him. So doesn't have the power of 100 Faces. Got it. So we definitely know probably Cursed Arm is going to be there. We know definitely maybe Serenity. Maybe. Right? I don't know if Serenity is newer. I don't know the timeline. Right? And then, of course, definitely first Hassan. But those are the only ones I really know. Right? So we'll have to see. Well, didn't actually think we'd get another Hassan here. She saw that he was capable of all manner of things she could not do herself, but she did not envy him. She only felt shame at her own impiety. In the end, the zealot found no proof of her faith and vanished into the mists of time. Or so it should have been. But what a quirk of fate in this case, that is the right word. When she was summoned by the man called Jester, she was given the knowledge of the world by the Holy Grail and immediately came to know her destiny. She had to bring the Holy Grail, the emblem of heresy, unto naught. That was all she desired. And though she was not aware that the past Grandmasters had all sought it, she felt only sorrow. She was not unaware, rather. She did not resent those Grandmasters, neither did she revile them. Their faith was, without a doubt, deeper than hers. Even now, they were worthy of her respect. Her hatred was directed at that which led them astray, the Holy Grail War. She had to put an end to it. She tore through the dark of night, hastening forth in search of the Holy Grail. Given that she had slain those magi, she would soon lose her supply of magical energy. She was still receiving magical energy, but it was a mere trickle. When the flow of magical energy came to a complete stop, she would vanish. Would that happen after a few days, a few hours, a few seconds even? But it mattered not. Until her last moment, even if her body was a mere apparition, the nameless assassin would not question her purpose. Believing that the piety of at least those who, like herself, had been faithful would be rewarded, she, without a moment's hesitation, made the Holy Grail War itself her enemy. A few minutes later, in the basement of the lakeside cottage where the nameless heroic spirit was summoned, there was no men, only corpses. By the time Assassin departed, this became an even more certain truth. Ka! A pristine laugh rang out, but the truth was what it was. In the room there was no men, only corpses. Ka! Ha 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 ha! A peal of laughter echoed. It sounded like the laugh of a child, jubilant from the bottom of its heart, but at the same time it was warped, somehow perverted. But the truth was still what it was. In the room there was no men, only corpses. Wow, what a surprise to think that the Holy Grail would bring me such a kooky little maverick. The man bounded up like a jack-in-the-box, the command spells on his right hand still gleaming. How beautiful. I was planning on awakening the spider with the power of the Holy Grail. The spider? Why does that sound familiar? Why does that sound familiar? Hold up. Hold up. No, I'm not going to say anything. I'm gonna wait for more proof. That sounds very familiar. I definitely remember something being called the spider and it being it's either a beast or a type. It's one of the two. Okay. Okay. Interesting. He's planning on awakening the spider with the power of the Holy Grail and living to see this tiresome world destroyed, but I had no idea I still had emotions, those vestiges of humanity. He trembled, beset by emotion, and the truth remained what it was. In that room there were no men, only corpses. Given that the truth was what it was, it could mean only one thing. The mage Jester Cartui, Carture. I don't know. I'll go with whatever I feel like. Now choked with emotion, was at this point a corpse. What pathos, what pulchritude. How bewitching, resplendent, dainty, picturesque, cute. Oh, what a tragic mistake I have made. When once I had so much time and so little to do, I should have mastered the Ars Poetica. I cannot find the words to describe her piety. Jester was having the time of his life. Paying no heed to the corpses scattered around the room, he began to unbutton his shirt. Magical-looking emblems appeared on his bare chest, emblems that were entirely unlike command spells. It was a ring of 6 red marks, similar in form to the cylinder of a 6-shooter. Okay. However, one of these 6 marks, the one closest to his left breast, had turned dark. She crushed my concept nucleus with such ease. I was as careful as I could be, and it didn't even matter. With her arm, she could return even a being far stronger than me to naught. Jester touched the darkened mark with a finger, whereupon his fingertip was sucked into the skin of his chest. Strangely, not a drop of blood fell from the mark. He shoved his hand up to the wrist into the muddy flesh-colored morass and squelched at his own innards. My mage soul has been utterly destroyed. Then, like a gear, or indeed like a revolver, the 6 marks rotated, almost as if they were wriggling. The darkened mark shifted to the left flank, loading a new red mark on his left breast. In that case, I'd best put on a new face from here on out. And then, somehow, just as the 6 marks had moved, his face and body pulsated. A moment later, he had the appearance of an entirely different man. He withdrew his finger from his chest and placed it on the darkened seal at his side. He was in a state of ecstasy as he rubbed his finger around it. The concept nucleus was shielded by countless layers of protective magic, and despite that, she made all of that as unto less than nothing with that red arm. Her fingers reached the very core of my being, an arm so simple and yet so fiendish, and yet, nay, thus it is beautiful. A noble phantasm, what a thing! He continued to speak to the corpses strewn around him with a clear, resounding voice. Of course, they did not respond. I am surprised that she was able to use that fearsome technique without hesitation and so many times at that. Had she access only to the energy of any other mage, an ordinary one unlike myself, she surely would have run out almost right away. He flashed his unusually sharp canines at the altar of corpses. He continued to talk to himself in a booming and almost bewitching voice. I suppose I need not tire of this world quite yet. That beautiful assassin, her piety, nary could I allow her to vanish without a name. That was a statement that could only be made by those who had seen her memories. Via the linkage of magical energy that connected a master and servant, the former could view the latter's thoughts and memories as though they were dreams. Of course not. Who would dare let such a thing go to waste? If Jester spoke true, it would mean that he learned of her faith through a dream he had while he was dead, but I shall grant you a name. Your beautiful face, your beautiful soul, your beautiful power, your beautiful faith. I will desecrate them and defile them and derogate them and debauch them and degrade them all. What greater pleasure could there be? He laughed heartily. His visage gradually took on a wicked color. Oh, pleasure, oh, impermanence, oh, beauty! I will make that beautiful servant kneel before me, and I will destroy her faith, and when I have drained the last of her power, what a sight that will be! Jester's heart beat to a euphoric rhythm as a shadow extended from the ground beneath his feet. It was a red shadow. A red as supremely deep as the emblems on his chest. Now, hold up. I'm just gonna say, there's been a red shadow that I've been reading about in Witch on the Holy Night, but I think this came... Okay, I think this might have came out before. Okay, so Fate, Strange, Fake, release date. I actually don't know when this one first came out. So this first came out in, December 31st, 2022. That's not what I want. Volume 1. Let's see here. Fate, Strange, Fake, Volume 1. 2015. And Witch on the Holy Night originally released in, wasn't it? Oh, 2012. So no, this is after. Okay. Okay, interesting. Well, I don't know. We'll have to see. Anyways, when the shadow finally wrapped itself around the bodies of all of Jester's disciples, it divorced itself from the ground and became a crimson wave that engulfed the countless corpses. And then, right away, the shadow withdrew back into Jester's body. As it did, it was a yet deeper red than before. In just seconds, the bodies had been reduced to mere skeletons by the inexorable shadow. The Holy Grail, the destruction of the world, those two are wonderful, this I grant. But what trifles they are mere dreck before her despair. And then he... Oh, well, here we go. A living corpse. A vampire. Climaxed from envisioning the taste of the servant's blood as his dead eyes glowed bright with life. As fellow heretics in this land, let us be the best of friends. And so, with nary a proper contract binding them, Assassin's Master infused the Holy Grail with a toxic darkness. Laughing and laughing and... Oh. That was a shorter chapter. Okay, interesting. So, that's a vampire. What does he mean by the spider? God. It's one of those things where I've definitely heard it before, but it's not in my brain. Alright, Prologue 4, Caster. We'll see if this one is a bit longer. I don't know who the caster is, actually. Prologue 4, Caster. The room was dark. Through a small gap in the window blinds, the roof of the neighboring high-rise was visible. Judging from the backdrop and behind the neighboring high-rise, it seemed that the room was rather higher up and located at the center of the city of Snowfield. The stars shone outside the window. The room, illuminated by the pale starlight, felt something like a modern office. From the rows of desks with computers to the air conditioning unit on the ceiling, nothing seemed unusual about the room. One could easily forget that this room was also part of the stage atop which the Holy Grail War would be enacted. However, none of the fluorescent lights on the ceiling were illuminated. The dignified voice of a leaderly man resounded through the darkness, as if to say the city itself was the Holy Grail War. "Well then, it seems that the other 5 servants have been summoned," said the man. He spoke with a great gravitas. Humble voice of the darkness. "Indeed, as of this time, the only master whose identity we have been able to confirm is Tina Shelk, who brought the King of Heroes under her control. We've been unable to establish contact with Mr. and Mrs. Kuraoka, who had been planned to ally with us in the war. We are aware of multiple other magi in the city, but regrettably we've been unable to determine which of them, if any, possess command spells," replied a humble voice in the darkness. "Is that so?" replied the man, with barely concealed frustration and disappointment in his voice. "The citywide surveillance system is surprisingly impotent." The other individual calmly continued to deliver her report. "We did observe one mage who, in a park in broad daylight, displayed his command spells and summoned a servant. However, the servant performed some variety of unusual illusions without revealing itself. In doing so, it evaded our agent, who was situated there disguised as a sunbather. At first we thought the mage to be a fool, but he seems quite capable." And you have not identified the heroic spirit, nor any of its characteristics?" "I'm afraid not. Furthermore, with regards to the first heroic spirit summoned, though the summoning took place in the city, we were unable to make heads or tails of the surveillance data. We are certain that the heroic spirit was summoned, but we've been unable to ascertain anything else, not even its location." "I presume this to be the doing of those government interlopers, judging from that declaration of theirs." He must have been referring to the incident with Rongal and Faldius some days prior. However, the other person, his subordinate, shook her head, responding in the negative. I am afraid that cannot be so. The first summoning occurred essentially at the same time as the issuance of their declaration. In that case, it is most likely looking that the first summoning was performed by the Kuraoka family. He stood up quietly, a sour look on his face, and went on. So be it. In any case, the greatest obstacle facing us is the King of Heroes. We need only eliminate him. Aye. Silence was about to descend the room when suddenly the phone began to ring. The leaderly man reluctantly picked up the receiver and, in the most businesslike manner, said, It's me. Sup, bro? How you doing? Huh? The man made a show of furrowing his brow. Caster, what do you want? He replied. Oh my god, this Caster. Come on, man, don't be like that. Listen, I was just watching the boob tube, and guess what? They said that some of the babylicious broads around these parts cost millions of smackers a night. Is that legit? What if it is? Call one in for me tonight, bro. Help a brother out. The other man on the other side of the phone was blunt, very blunt. I am no brother of yours. Why not, man? Don't tell me you forgot about how we made a blood oath. We're blood brothers, you know, I like that sort of thing. I like the sound of that, blood brothers. I looked it up on the internet. Apparently, people do this sort of stuff in Scandinavia all the time. I dig it. You, a heroic spirit, forged a contract with me, your master. That is the precise extent of our relationship. His temples twitched as the grip on the receiver grew firmer. There were command spells boldly visible in the back of his hand, forming a shape evocative of chains. In that case, the man on the other side of the phone must have been his servant. It was strange they were so distant from one another, both in physical terms and in terms of the relationship. It was unusual for a master-servant to converse by phone. The servant grumbled. You just don't get it, man. Resuming the conversation at a rapid-fire pace, putting pressure on his master. Don't get me wrong, okay? My job is to make heroes. I sure as heck am no hero myself, but if you want to treat me like a hero, that's A-okay, especially when it comes to ladies. No, wait, come to think of it, of course I'm a hero. I mean, how can a guy boink 100 chicks and make 1,000 babies and not be a hero to forever aloners? Alright, hold the frickin' phone. Who is this? I need a reminder. I'm going to add a check mark. I'm going to go back to the first page. All right, who is it for Caster? Rider. Okay, let's just see here. Which one was Caster? Is Caster even on here? Assassin? Oh no, it's not. No, it's not at all. Oh, Caster right there. Okay. No, let's see here. Okay, so it says servant summoned by Police Chief Orlando, woman-loving hedonist, possesses the ability to create new noble phantasms. So yeah, we know nothing about this guy. Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. So this man is Orlando then also. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Let's go back to our bookmark. Okay. Interesting. Enough with the implausible tall tales. If you have time to tell lies, you have time to work. Return to your duties. Yeesh, I gotta keep doing that? Step into my shoes for a bit, man. Listen, all I want from the Holy Grail is good food and hot babes. More importantly, I want to see what kind of drama comes out of this war, and what happens to all the participants in the end. That's all. But at this rate, I'm gonna go mad from all this work before the war ends. Caster's master sighed and humored Caster, acknowledging his complaints. I will prepare women and food for you. Now return to your work with all due respect. Produce weapons ever more sublime. Man, you're a real wet blanket. You know, this isn't even my specialty. Don't forget that, Kay. Besides, if you want a counterfeiter, there are better people out there. So I was on the internet yesterday and I read about this guy called Elmarie de Hori. And plus, I heard a rumor. Apparently there's a guy who can use some kind of super ultra awesome match to copy things over and over again. Oh, geez, I wonder who that is. A mere copy is of no... wait, is this? A mere copy is of no value to us. A counterfeit that does not surpass the original object will be of no avail against the King of Heroes. Okay. So you like my agitations, huh? I'm so happy I could cry. Not. Go screw the pooch, why don't ya? Ah, bugger. Oh, he's British. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have joked about my stories being better than the real thing back when they made all the racket about forgeries. I mean, shit. I put that instant 100 years behind me, and I was totally getting down and dirty with Cleopatra and Yang Gife. Hey, I know both of them. Then you come along and drag me out of bed. And now look at me, I'm here slaving away doing your dirty work. I was not expecting that, man. It's a load of crap. Who'd want to hear a story like this? Give me a break! Do not misunderstand me. I chose you not because of those anecdotes about your life. Quite simply, you are the one who can create legends that exceed the legends of old. I believe that you have the power to invent tales that surpass even the greatest legends of old, and the power to give form to those tales. His master replied, quelling his frustration. He immediately recognized that Castor's tales were full of lies. Oh, you are... Okay. So, police chief, I'm guessing here. Let me double check. I'm gonna again throw up a bookmark here. So I can come back, page 69. Nice. And then, is that Orlando? Yes, Orlando has a scar on him. Okay. Okay. But otherwise, whoever this is... I don't know. He creates heroes. Creates noble phantasms. He did reference Scandinavia, so if there's something with that, I have no clue. Look, bro, I don't give a rat's ass about your compliments, but hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you take those compliments and write a book based on them? Go ahead and read it to your old lady. Well, she's in bed with me, that is. Actually, if you're gonna do that, show me a draft first. See, I'm a lot better with fixing crappy scripts than I am at reading legends, so... Is this an author servant? If it is, dang, okay. Huh. The man did not hear Castor out to the very end, hanging up the receiver mid-sentence. The flood of words receded, leaving the room utterly silent once again. The man went on to speak into the darkness of the room, acting as though this conversation with Castor had never happened. Gilgamesh, the king of heroes. It seems that his nameless sword and his infinite treasury shall prove to be our greatest obstacle. The man stood up from his chair once again and slowly paced around the room with his hands behind his back. As such, I shall have no choice but to overwhelm him with numbers before he draws his sword. We must use every means available to us to lure him into a state of weakness, and then we will murder him honorably. With every step he took, he left a powerful, even intimidating aura. It was as though the darkness itself glowed the color of exigency. Oh, that's another new word. That's another new word to Google. Exigency. An urgent need or demand.
Exigency.
Exigency. All right. Women worked long hours with exigencies of the family demanded it. So demands, okay. Color of demand. Sounds good. However, mere numbers will not be suffice to defeat him. After all, on top of being unaffected by physical attacks, heroic spirits are immeasurably stronger than even the finest of athletes. Of course, the caster I summon is an exception. In a brawl, I should imagine that even I might have the upper hand, but that is not my concern now. He glanced askance, as if he said something he should not have. He then collected himself and continued to pace. Then again, what if man could master the use of noble phantasms? In the context of the Holy Grail War, a noble phantasm was a nigh godlike ability possessed by each hero. Take, for example, the sword Amano Murakomo from the legend of Yamato Takeru. It, like all noble phantasms, is a symbol of the hero that wields it, and draws out the greatest powers of its wielders. Naturally, they are not the sort of things one could find lying around in gun shops or antique shops. Indeed, it would scarcely be an exaggeration to say that summoning a servant is equivalent to summoning a noble phantasm. So immense is the power of noble phantasm, a wild card that can turn the tide of battle. Suppose, furthermore, that each of these weapons were more powerful than the original items they were based on. What then? Having walked deep into the darkness of the room, the man stopped before a wall and... he raised his right hand. the hand on which were inscribed as command spells, and flipped a switch. The room lit up. In the room, suddenly awash with light, a line of people extended from one end of the expansive room to the other. Each of them was clad in black. They were not the black robes typical of magi, however. A distinctive piece of equipment hung from each of their waists, like an emblem of authority. Men and women stood there in no particular order. All in all, there were perhaps 30 people in that lineup of police officers. Each of them stood at attention, their black uniforms exuding an impressive aura. Each one held in their hands a weapon, each of different type. What a bizarre sight. Those utterly stony-faced, uniformed... Oh my god, this image is amazing. Those utterly stony-faced, uniformed police officers held swords, bows, shields, spears, chains, scythe, bludgeons, among other things. What's more, they all had a pair of handcuffs and a pistol holstered at their belts. They had long since passed unfitting and were in the realm of the absurd. One of them even had the golden arquebus over his shoulder. The golden what now? Time to Google another new word. What is an arquebus? Sounds like an arcuate succubus. Oh, that is a 15th century gun from the Ottoman Empire. Interesting. All right. Well, cool. It was like they were entertainers in police garb on their way to a performance to perform tourism in the snowfield area. Odds are, however, that any half-decent mage that saw them would not laugh, but rather that they would faint. A power that had been tempered with magical energy and vitality seeped out of the weapons they were carrying, as if to erode the very air within the room. Those noble phantasms were all counterfeits. Even so, they were mightier than their originating legend. Clan Calatin, the 28 Monstrosities. Those were the warriors of Celtic myth who crossed swords with Cuchulainn, equivalent immediately. That will be your code name. Or, sorry, effective immediately, that'll be your code name. Oh, that's kind of cool. As he gazed upon the overwhelming yet out-of-place power with satisfaction, he, the police chief of Snowfield, spread his arms wide and issued a booming declaration. Though my words may mean little, as police chief I shall guarantee this. As a mage I swear this. You are justice incarnate. Upon hearing that, the entire line of police officers stamped their feet in perfect unison. As one, they saluted the police chief, who was their master, and at the same time their master. Oh, that's kind of fun wordplay. And upon witnessing that action, any discerning person would come to understand that they were not mere police officers, but rather they had undergone some sort of special training beyond what was typical of their profession. Their organization had established a net that ensconced the entire city. All they required of the servant was his talent of noble phantasm creation, a task with which the Magi under their control had assisted. In other words, mere humans though they were, they would defeat heroic spirits, thus shaking the very foundations of the Holy Grail War. In the end, what destiny awaited them? That was a story of the man who summoned a caster. That was a story that the man summoned as a caster had not yet finished writing. Okay, so he must be an author. He must be a Scandinavian author who I don't know. Even an unwritten story, however, has an audience. After the officers left the room, the room echoed to the sound of delicate applause. "What are you doing here?" the chief grumbled vexedly without turning to look. Obvious disgust showed through in his voice, which he loaded with enough pressure to crush the soul of a small animal. Thereupon the owner of the applause poked her face out of the shadows. What's this? Kind of feels like you're giving me the cold shoulder. Can I drop in even if I don't have business? It was a girl who appeared to be in about her mid-teens. She wore a gothic Lolita-style dress with black and white keynotes and clasped overly. At the very least, this is no place for outsiders. Oh, I'm an outsider now. You've sure gotten high and mighty, newbie. The girl giggled and twirled her umbrella. Despite her peevish remarks, she gave the impression of being in high spirits. Still, that was a masterpiece. How'd it go, Your Justice? What a performance. If I was judging the Golden Raspberry Awards, I wouldn't hesitate to nominate you for Worst Actor. I can't believe the Razzies are canon in the Fate universe. I wasn't trying to put on a show. I only stated the truth. Oh, what's this? Could it be that you seriously believe you're justice? You're one of the perpetrators of this grand scam, remember? I am. The girl burst into a cackle in the chief's unflinching response. Well, I wish I had your nerve. That's not very patriotic, is it? I mean, if you really love this country, you'd never call it just. It may be true that I am no patriot and no pious man of God, but I do take pride in the fact that my actions are the results of my just beliefs. Sounding more as though if he was trying to convince himself than the girl, the chief continued, Of course, I won't claim that our justice matches the Grail's. Should circumstances demand it, we may end up making enemies not only of the association of the church, but the Grail War system itself as well. Don't worry so much. Ruler won't be in this war. Oh, okay. The girl waved a hand as she spoke, as if to mock the words the chief uttered with such determination. What? The next instant, the tone of the girl's smile suddenly changed. And even if Ruler does show up after it switches over to the real Grail War, it'll be too late. Oh, I never even considered that. It was still an innocent smile, but now it had taken on the cruel look of a child rhythmically stomping on a line of ants. The Snowfield Holy Grail War will be elevated from a fake to the real deal in Baer, of course. Once that happens, Ruler won't be able to stop it or even intervene. We'll be able to do a bad R word, the whole of the Grail War all we want. Her breath whitened as she went on triumphantly, sunk in ecstasy. Don't you see how wonderful this is? I never thought I'd get another chance to have my way with that holy maiden, then turn her into a pile of cinders that aren't even good for pig slop. What? Oh, it's incredible. It's the best. I hope Ruler does come. I couldn't manage to break her spirit back then, but this time she won't be a hero whose work is done. She'll die as a ruler who wasn't able to do her duty. I'm sure that will get to her. Oh. Ma'am, your outfit. Jeez. Okay. So that could be one of two things. Obviously, in this case, Ruler is, of course, Jean. Because Jean was the one ruler class that existed at this time. Now, if this could be potentially someone that was known in life, but it could also... Wait a sec. When was Apocrypha light novel? When was the Apocrypha light novel released? 2012, right? This is so that was 2012. And Fate, Strange, Fake. I need to remind myself. Volume 1 release date was... Stop giving me the freaking... Okay, 2015. So, okay, this is... So, Apocrypha... Volume... Sorry, I'm bad with numbers. I'm terrible with numbers. Okay, so all of Apocrypha is done at this point. Okay. Okay. Apocrypha is totally done. But what's not done is... the manga, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so this could be someone from Apocrypha, potentially, right? Or someone who knew her in life. Someone who doesn't like Jean. Interesting. At that point, her smile suddenly returned to normal and her excitement leveled up. Don't you think it's just wonderful? She asked the chief. His answer, however, was curt. I will do it if it becomes necessary, but I do not consider it a laudable action. You're so uptight, a real stick in the mud. The girl teasingly addressed him, twirling her umbrella. Don't you ever get tired of being a hero? It's so much easier when you're the bad guy, you know? Whatever you do, you can just pass it off with because I'm the bad guy. Acting crazy is easy too. You can just pass off anything you do with because I'm crazy. Alright, she is just Harley Quinn. Then with a malicious narrowing of her eyes, she added a final sarcastic remark. Oh, but justice works the same way. Sorry about that. With that, the girl turned to go, but she abruptly stopped, looked back, and asked the chief, Oh, that's right. Didn't Mr. Fake Caster want a woman? If he does, why don't I go and keep him company? Hurry up and return to headquarters without any unnecessary detours. Getting a response pregnant with a rage so intense it was practically homicidal, the girl shrugged her shoulders and turned her back on the chief again. Yes, I'll wait my turn like a good girl. After he watched the girl open the door normally and go, the chief spat. Play the mastermind as long as you can, you old bitch. Oh my god. But there was no smile on his face, no sense of composure. Anyone who saw him would have taken his words for the excuses of a sordid loser. But even if they were, his mind would remain unclouded. His conviction had already reached a place beyond his pride, or even his life. Okay. Very interesting. We're getting some interesting characters that, because I was like, I feel like at this point, I feel like I know who kind of everyone is. Like, I felt like that going into reading this, but now that I'm like, I absolutely don't. Once again, like, I don't have much about her to actually, can I rotate the page? Nope, that's not the rotate page button. Like, I don't have anything about her. Like, if I were to just do this, right? So I get that it's, can I make this full screen so I can read it easier? Thank you. So, a mysterious gothic girl who appeared before him, she appears to be knowledgeable, and her true identity is, because yeah, we don't know anything about that. We also didn't go back to Faldius. We don't know anything about Kuraoka Tsubaki. So Orlando Reeves is, yeah, the police chief and a Magus. Caster, I don't know much about. Enkidu, we don't need to worry about. Like, I know Enkidu. There's no worries there. So yeah, we kind of met everyone else kind of here. Well, not a, what's it say for assassin here? The zealot servant of the mastery of 18 miracles. She was feared as a heresy. Okay, so yeah, now we know for sure that she is 100% she's a Hassan, but like a heretical Hassan, which is buck wild. Buck wild. Okay. And Jester. Jester is seemingly a vampire. Okay. Well, sounds good, guys. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next time for the next chapter here, which is going to be about a rider, which I'm excited to get to because, I mean, again, it's just kind of cool to be learning about some of these different servants and not knowing who they are. I'm trying to guess because I have no idea. Thank you all for watching, guys. We'll see you next time for some more Let's Read Fate Strange Fake. Ciao.